Charles, man, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you?
Good, good. Are you using your calculator on your phone?
No, I'm doing a little bit of research. How are you, sir?
There we go. I just muted my other one. All right, everybody, welcome to. We're letting a couple other people stream in. Cutting Edge with Charles De La Torre, and see his moniker right behind his head there, on his shirt, on his hat. You got everything working there today, Charles.
Yeah, I try to stay brand conscious.
That's right on, right on. I got the MX shirt going. I don't have much else going except that screen behind me today. I let a couple people stream in here.
How's your President's Day going, Ash?
Good, good. Going really well today. I haven't been trampled by any horses or had my truck towed. I'm all good.
That's always a positive.
It
Trampled
was
by
nice
horses, though.
driving.
Where does that come from?
Didn't that happen up in Canada last week or something?
Oh, yep. Hey, touche, sir. Touche.
It's good. Steve and I drove in today, and it was quiet today. It was good a good drive in. All right, we've got maybe a little. So let's just kick it off, Charles. So last week having this show, but man, I was just looking at some numbers here. Some of the when you go to up 30, up 50, up 5. I mean, crazy. A print price is doing. The spot market is kind of all over the place. How's this? What's this? What are you seeing down southeast? We'll first start out with lumber, and then I want to talk about those 116 and 5/8 that you got up here.
I see a lot of fragmentation in the market. I mean, what one guy thinks is a good price and the other guy doesn't think it's such a good price. I mean, it's all about who needs what, when, and how, right? If you need it and you don't have it, you're willing to pay for it. If you do need it, but you need it in the future, you're going to counter. And with the fragmentation in the market, it creates a lot of opportunity because nobody really understands what something's worth for both sides, really, the buyer and the seller.
Yeah, you know what? Absolutely, especially when you get to these levels. And what we're seeing is whether it's coming on a vessel that's late or a truck that's late. I've never seen people more willing. They understand the logistical problems and everything, and I've had nobody really complain. They've asked a lot about orders, but they understand it. So this must be system wide, like you said, fragmentation. But sell at one location at one price, sell at a completely different price at another location. Things are moving so quickly, it's hard to figure out. Does that make sense?
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Right on.
And it's
Right
it's cross species too.
One thing
though.
I want to, you're. We had a little delay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, no, all I was going to say is that it's a cross species and product, whether it's a stud trim, it's a specialty trim, it's stock links. I mean, it's the misinformation or lack of firm information from hour to hour is extremely prevalent in day-to-day business right now.
No, right on. One thing I wanted to highlight, I mean, I keep seeing this item out there. It's crazy. 116 and 5/8, right? 116 and 5/8 item. I've seen it trade $100 to $200 premium discount to just different places within 200 miles of each other. So you've got some of that listed on the platform today. Tell us a little bit about the product that you got listed at 116 and 5/8.
It's a Euro premium product. I mean, it's a cutback from some of the stuff we reman and regrade internally. So I mean, we saw a need and saw that nobody had any in the first 10 or 12 trucks that we ended up cutting. I mean, sold in 10 minutes. We've only got one or two left, and just trying to see where it's going to end. I know it's going to be different from where it was a week ago, but that's the nature of the beast, right?
For sure. I appreciate that. Let's go to the panel market, OSB and plywood, but mainly OSB. We started out of the gate selling OSB again. Another market that different pockets of the United States I see are paying a different premium than other parts of the United States. It's almost like watching the corn basis on agricultural markets, where you're like, wow, the Dakotas are paying a plus 100, and some of these other places are not paying that. Have you noticed that in the Southeast at all?
It's not as prevalent as it is in the Central and the West side, because it seems like Texas is kind of an OSB black hole right now. They can't get enough. And, people are willing to pay up for it. I mean, the same origins that are, shipping to Texas are also going up Nebraska and Wisconsin and what have you, because of, once again, supply chain backlogs and lack of rail cars coming down from Canada.
Yeah, agreed. Are you seeing that on all the different tiers of the OSB, from the specialty grades on the 3/4 flooring to just the commodity grades, or is there one that's harder to get than others right now?
I think 3/4 flooring across the board is kind of a ghost.
Okay.
From commodity all the way through value add. And I mean, value add, you and I talked about some specialty stuff last week, and some of the prices you told me you saw were, mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, so we have all the different tiers of OSB flooring listed today, from the tier 1 to the tier 2 to the tier 3, and it's all prompt, right? So if anybody wants to come on and bid on that, they can see what we've got on that one. It's all mostly along that we're listing this at for people that own it. So that's if that's one thing people are looking at. There's probably 10 trucks of specialty 3/4 on here. So let's go over to the logistics side. Man, I got to tell you, we've talked about this. Greg talked about it last week. Every other call is, like I said, they're not complaining, but where's my load, right? And Nick and I were down at a trucking company last week, and they basically said for every people looking for 110 trucks, there's 100 trucks available, right? And then
I'd
you
probably
look at
say
the country.
It's worse than that.
Well, yeah, in some areas, absolutely worse than that. Some areas, and you can see on some of these maps that we look at on a technical trucking sites, where there's some areas where there's no. It's almost like watching those airplane maps where all the airplanes are. There's sometimes loads where there's no truck sitting around there, right? And they just sit there.
Yep.
Like if you look at Waco, Texas, or areas like that, there's loads that need to be hauled, but there's nobody available. But then you get to certain markets, there's a little bit better, but still it's still undersubscribed. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah.
For truckers. So going into this week, we have a long holiday. Long holidays can usually change some people's minds on things, but right now it still seems like there's a pretty good bite. There was a little bit of shakiness talking about equities last week, potential war situation in Ukraine, but lumber may have hiccuped a little bit, but it still seems to be kind of straight out and moving right along, right?
Definitely. I don't know that we're going to see the monstrous jumps in appreciation we've seen over the past couple weeks. But we're definitely sustaining levels, which is a little bit different than what we've done in the past, right? In the past, it's skyrocketed and come down. And I say past 2 years, and there's been a lot of give back, but I feel like at this point in the environment that we're in, there's too much takeaway for it to absolutely sink. And a lot of people are going to talk about interest rates and, what happened in 2008 and so on and so forth. But the difference is there's a different buyer in the market now than there was in 2008. A lot of the people that are in the market are in my generation that have been in a job for 5, 7, 10 years and actually have the ability to work remote and can do Zoom calls and all this other stuff, to where they're relocating. So that demand for housing is still going to be strong. It's just a matter of what price point works best for that demographic that's left. Now, that's not my job. That's a national builder's job to figure that out. But as far as demand, I don't think there's any letting up for the foreseeable future. Permits are up. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, we go back to the same thing. Permits are up. There seems to still be push in some of the big markets. But like you said, some people are now going to places like, well, I shouldn't say they're great places, but Boise, Idaho is a big area where people are building at. People want to like have their nice area and their business. It's not the business I work in because I need to be in the office every day, right? But for those who are lucky enough to convince their company that they can work from home and still do a good job, you're right. That's a big, and that's a younger generation too, right?
Oh, definitely. Um, it's people that are used to having their cake and eating it too, and I think technology has been a big push for that, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I wanted to talk about. Let's talk about Southern Pine. So I'm
Okay.
seeing some stuff show up from some mills, but it's mainly 2x6. Some of the wides are hard. Every now and then a 2x8 shows up. But what are you seeing on pine out there right now?
I think what you just described. I mean, there are some narrows that are popping up here, there, and yonder, but it's not. There's not a massive amount of southern yellow pine just sitting around waiting to be consumed. 2x8s are popping up a little bit more. I mean, we saw that little hiccup towards the end of February, and the rollover of the contract, and 2x8 seemed to be the weakest dimension in southern yellow pine. But 2x6, I mean, it gave back some, but I mean, it bounced back $150 in 7 days.
Right. Right. In talking to these truss facilities, shoot, they're still booked out so far. And I don't see that changing in the near future. I mean, I think they're turning some business away.
That's definitely a fact, and labor's a big piece of that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big piece for us too.
Yeah. One thing that we're seeing is a lot more distributors and wholesalers listing on here. And I was sitting around thinking about it the other day, and it makes sense because you've got a lot more risk at $1,400 and $1,500 wood than you did at $500 wood, right? You want to have as much liquidity as possible when you can have that liquidity. Now, a mill is a little different because they're sitting back and they've got a lower cost of production. They're making good money. This is their turn to really cut a fat hog, so to speak. But when you're sitting in a position like you're sitting, you can buy a whole bunch of lumber, but 20 trucks of what you bought, a year ago. Well, maybe a year ago is not a perfect example because a year ago was, but 20 trucks in a normalized market, what you're putting out on cash right now, I'm not saying it has to keep you awake at night, but you definitely want to know where a lot of that stuff is moving, don't you?
Oh, it will keep you up at night, especially when you see wild transitions. Because I mean, I think you and I discussed. I was pretty bearish towards the end of January, and it happened, and I was so happy. And then all of a sudden, light switch, and it changed in like 48 hours.
So quickly. Yep.
I mean, we went from being short to being long, astronomical numbers, and selling our average wholesale sales week. We probably 2.5 times it in a matter of 3 days. So it's a lot of sleepless nights.
So how we had a good conversation today. How far out, when you say your saw time, how far out, if you can share that, are you right now? And what is that? I don't know what a normalized market, but what is that relative to a normalized market?
I mean, we're a solid 4.5 weeks out. Usually we only try to stay about 2, but the problem is that we've, once again, with the volatility and the hiccups and then the strength and then the hiccups and then the strength, we've got a lot of inventory that we had to sell and we sold into it pretty hot and heavy. And I think, a lot of the big southern yellow pine mills did the same thing. And that's why you're not seeing a lot of pine in narrows. I mean, you see some 2-6 pop up, but there's not a lot of relative weakness all the way around.
Right. Julie said she's listening. Charles, hey Julie, how's it going? I don't know if you can see those this scrolling notes on the side.
Oh yeah. Hey Julie.
It's cool. We have, it's funny. So as I go back through and look at our size of the people watching now, I mean, live we get up to 100 plus now between LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and the other things we use.
It's Twitch.
Come on, man. You're young enough. You should know what Twitch is. It's a gamer site where you can post a lot of your stuff also, man.
Really?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. If you're not on Twitch, man, come on. You got to be on Twitch.
I'll have to work on that. I'll get
Isn't
my
that
social
right, Nick?
media.
Twitch. Yeah, Nick said Twitch. Twitch is the place to be.
I'll get my social media department and see what we can do.
Real cool. Well, so what's your thoughts going into this week? What do you see in developing? It's light. It seems light this morning, but a lot more inquiry is starting to come in. We've seen a lot more matches come in. What about
I
your
don't know.
side?
I think anybody's guess right now. I mean, if you need it, buy it. If you don't need it outside of March, and you have patience, wait. I mean, but that's kind of the course that you run when you do that. Maybe higher, but if it is higher, how much higher is it really going to be if you wait? Right? I
Yeah,
think there's more downside risk than upside risk. Out to April, I think March is pretty well done, for lack of a better way to describe it. OSB, you can't find it. Plywood is beyond tight. And, the little bit of Southern Yellow Pine that's popping up, I mean, it's getting gobbled up pretty quick. So if you haven't bought for March, you might be a little tight towards the end of March. But if you've got time to wait till the middle of April, I'd do it.
yeah, and I mean, look, we were already selling some Euro 3/4 for April shipping, and people were buying it for a lot of jobs. But what we've seen, Charles, is a lot of people that are now in different pockets oversubscribed to OSB are listing them on our platform and selling it. So we had more retail to retail business last week on OSB than we've had in a long time.
That's
Where
fantastic.
a retailer in Ohio just sold a retailer in Iowa today, right? So we're getting all that kind of stuff moving again because basically we create a distribution network for the people that never had one before, right? When it wants to flow back the other direction. Um,
Yep.
so it's kind of
Liquidity.
cool.
I think it goes back to that. I think
That's
it goes
it.
back to liquidity.
That's it. More liquidity, more transparency, and we want to give everybody the opportunity to not only be a buyer, but when they got extra. Because when you think about it, a lot of these retail yards take all these OSB contracts. They don't want to take less, right? But as prices move up like this, they have $1,000 or $1,200 1,000 load of OSB sitting there. Well, that's risky, right? Instead of taking 60 days to distribute that through the field, if they have an extra, they can turn it into money in 2 days with us and
Yep.
sell it into a market that needs it. So we're creating a need for somebody else too. Um, all right, well, cool. I don't have much else. I wanted to just get us back on track doing stuff, Charles, and let's make sure we fire this up next week again. Tomorrow we're gonna have Mike's gonna have his futures show. Wednesday we're gonna have Greg and Matt Beamer. Thursday Matt Lehman, and Friday we're gonna have the Smart Market. So it should be a solid week again for all of us.
Sounds good, Ash. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Charles.